In death, there are no accidents, no coincidences, no mishaps, and no escapes. I'd like to welcome everyone to the frightening prospect where death is inevitable. My name is Renegade Operative, and this video is tailor-made to illustrate death's design within the Final Destination franchise. A design that will at least be explained in relatively simple terms for the casual observer. If you're not inherently familiar with these movies, then I think a basic synopsis is par for the course here. Final Destination was a horror film that was initially released in the early 2000s. A group of teenagers head on a trip to Paris near John F. Kennedy International Airport. This airplane was infamously named Flight 180. Tension starts to mount when one of the students, Alex Browning, witnesses a deadly premonition where everyone dies in a fiery cocktail after takeoff. Browning freaks out about this, demanding that everyone should leave the airplane before it goes up in a ball of flames. Because this personal premonition motioned around his own head, it was clear that no one else believed him. A giant fight ensued on the plane, and a couple of passengers left their seats as Flight 180 took off into the atmosphere. Suddenly, glass shatters as the airplane explodes from a striking distance. Alex Browning was right the entire time. After so much conspiracy, after so much doubt, fear was finally confirmed. This sets off a chain of predestined events called death's design. This essentially equates death to coming back like a professional hitman to finish the job. You see, Browning and his remaining friends were all destined for death in the initial premonition. Alex broke that by realizing how dire things were ahead of schedule. After the incident, all the survivors began dying under very mysterious circumstances depending on where each victim was seated. This is called death's list, equated to a shopping list gone horribly wrong for the intended victim. This list going south usually results in being shot, skewered, choked, drowned, bisected, electrocuted, decapitated, burned viciously, and much more. If human gibbing was part of a culinary arts program, then you could guarantee that death would be serving up some hot humane enchiladas. The unfortunate human who survives death's design will be sporadically killed as part of the original order upon death in the premonition. This is where some perplexing values wash over me like a ladder going straight through the eye. You see, death likes to organize the design in a distinctive fashion. Things were kept clean and pristine in the original movie once the remaining order kicked into high gear. When Alex Browning and company survived Flight 180, they started to die in order. The movie sort of makes this into a guessing game depending on their initial plane seating. Imagine if the plane seats went from 1 through 5, well, victim 1 through 5 would be killed in a straight line unless divine intervention somehow takes hold and knocks on their doorstep. Intervention has been a thing since the very beginning for this timeline. For example, if Subject 2 prevented Subject 3 from dying, then the plan will complicate death's design. We will simply refer to this original construct as cheating death. Victim 3 would be readily skipped for Victim 4's dead reckoning before steadily moving backwards. Remember what I said at the beginning, death is inevitable. Once you are skipped, you can't be skipped forever. Alex Browning and Clear Rivers are definitive examples, cheating death many times only to suffer the consequence at the end when they finally died between both movies. If death goes in reverse to hound the skip participant, then this means that cheating death does not ruin death's design in the long haul. However, inconsistency also exists within the very core of death's design as we move forward here. Then again, when is death ever a neat thing in the first place, right? Death's design was famously marked out of order when the Route 23 disaster happened. A disaster which gave a new meaning for my pants getting tight whenever driving near logs on the interstate. Everyone who has met a grisly fate during the Route 23 disaster actually died in reverse for their deaths on the highway. It was the first time that Flight 180 actually caused a chain reaction direction in the timeline because most participants in Route 23 survived because of circumstances surrounding Flight 180. This certainly affected the Route 23 survivors. Some were late, had partners who had to call in, etc. It was a gigantic pile involving inadvertence from the working order. A new life was foolishly thought about as a means to cheat death forever. While it does work, the survivors originally threw out a bad poker face. It was first believed that bringing a baby into the world created new life for the victim that hindered death's entire design moot. Kimberly Corman and Thomas Burke analyzed this theory, believing that a pregnant woman on Route 23 could bring new life into the planet. However, this didn't effectively stop the madness. The woman was never planned for the morgue, as the story gave our heroes a grim reality. If a pregnant survivor was meant for death, then that still would account for 2 lives being taken, even if death was constantly cheated for these individuals at hand. There is a deleted scene in Final Destination 1 where Clear Rivers gives birth to Alex Browning's child, effectively beating Death's design with new life. However, this is deemed as non-canon. It's an alternative ending at best, so sadly it will not be counted. In this case, for Final Destination 2, a new life really represents resurrection, a victim brought back from the brink, which stops the plan entirely. Kimberly Corman attempted to drown herself in a river, lungs full of salt water, gagging on her final breath, and dying in the process. Once her body was revived, then the victims that are marked in Death's distinctive plan will be safe. I know what you're thinking. Will new life prevent another design of Death from being thwarted? The answer is clear. No. It's obvious that you can't fuck with this Mac Daddy if Brian was brought into the equation. Brian was a character in Final Destination 2 who explodes at the grill during the end of the film. The reason he died is due to a character named Rory saving him from a news van collision. Rory cheated Death by not being at the Flight 180 massacre. An investigation would be void if the main man Rory took his rightful seat on the plane. Therefore, a new life only affects that original design. The rest is non-negotiable and left for Death to decide. Brian's fate was decided due to the fact that Rory created these chain of events for him because he was standing in this general direction of the incoming medic truck. He was supposed to die right there before Rory intervened, and therefore Brian cheated Death before Death circled around and killed him. The notion of early suicide is also not permitted by Death. It's their terms, their rules. You only die when Death allows it. Eugene in the second movie tried to kill himself with a fully loaded revolver, freaking out reasonably after the elevator decapitation. It is discovered later on that even though he pulled the trigger, the bullets didn't ignite, confirming that if you are marked for death by Death's design, then you are screwed if you try to escape by your own hand. Even if you're last on the list, it's all done under Death's shadow. People have pondered if suicide could throw a wrench in Death's design like Ian McKinley. However, I always believed that this failed attempt would just be in vain, akin to cheating Death once. This effectively crushes the means to an end like a powder keg. The final method that survivors theorize is a life for a life. Can you kill someone who cheated Death and steal their remaining life for your own, siphoning the water to kill or be killed? It's a modest question that can't be taken lightly once Final Destination 5 came into the picture. This more or less extends to life extension. If someone has an illness or was slated to die, then you might be able to kill them and take their last remaining days before Death circles back and kills you in the process. It's an acceleration game at play with this messy premise, but survivors contend with it if they happen to get desperate. It's kind of like a ticking clock. Slice slicing seconds in half as time reaches its final destination. Can you become a mass murderer just so you can save yourself? Can you kill your own friends if you're running out of time? It's a moral dilemma that has an unknown factor involved with it. If you kill someone outside of death's plan, how long is their remaining lifespan? It's one tried and true variant that has a giant question mark painted on it. If you kill someone who was stated to die early, then their death, their lifespan will migrate to yours as a countermeasure regardless. Life stealing only extends death's design, in my honest opinion. It might give you a few days from that person's lifespan that you took. You might live for like maybe a week or so, but if they were supposed to die in a week, then that means that you're gonna die in a week as well if you steal their lifespan. It's very confusing and it's hard to acknowledge, but I tried to keep this on relatively easy terms as a basis for understanding. Just tick a few days on there before someone's death comes a knocking. The most guaranteed solution seems to be a new life. It's the only thing that ends the design. If you're not meant to be alive, then the only other prevention seems to be padded isolation. We saw this with Clear Rivers in the second movie. While death still had her on the list, it wasn't able to kill her immediately due to no means of doing so. In closing, it truly is a sight to behold, seeing so many get precognition as an attempt to finally cheat death. Fate is normally what we make for ourselves, defying anxiety, fear, and the unexplained notion that is centered around something, the fact that something is going to happen. We don't know why survivors see these things. You may be able to prolong your life, but it's not like you can escape your inevitable death. This concept is believed by the circumstance of death being an entity, even if loopholes drain like a sponge. The fight for life might explain why these ominous premonitions creep into the mind, body, and spirit. Maybe death loves playing these sick games. However, precognition is the main objective. It's one of these other things that has existed in the Final Destination franchise since the dawn of time. The paranormal struggle to think about the future and delay the inevitable. It's like a bad omen, which does give a little bit of leeway, a little bit of edge to the survivors. These precognition people can see clues for the next potential victim, like photos, images, handprints, or seeing environmental context before the next disaster happens. We saw in the third film where someone was flashed with intense light before an explosion occurred, signifying death well in advance. The novels also have premises that we haven't seen in live action, like people being able to make deals with death in order to further the plan. It is possible for a survivor to also get into a secondary accident per the third film. This means that death can still lump all the eggs into one basket with the original plan and a new one to match. Either way, this is Renegade Operative signing off, and hopefully you enjoyed this video talking about death's design, understanding the ways to prevent death in Final Destination and how it all works and sort of melds together into one package. Once again, if you have any questions about this video, please let me know. Tell me what you think about the topic at hand for Final Destination. Is there anything that I missed in terms of death's design? Please shout that out in the comment section below, and we will get to discussing, baby. I am Renegade Operative. I am signing out. Please check me out on social media. You can check me out on the descriptions below. Check out my horror Discord, my variety Discord. Everything is there for your needs, so you can get in and have fun with us. I will see you guys next time. Later. Be sure to cheat death, because you can only cheat death once. You can't cheat it twice.